I don't have facts to back this up, but I happen to believe that these demonstrations are planned and orchestrated to distract from the failed policies of the Obama administration. Don't blame Wall Street. Don't blame the big banks. If you don't have a job and you're not rich, blame yourself.
You don't think the banks have anything to do with the crisis that we went into in 2008?
They did have something to do with the crisis that we went into in 2008, but we are not in 2008. We're in 2011. Okay? Yes, they had a big part to do with it, and obviously you could go back and say, okay, what did the banks do to do this? These demonstrations, I honestly don't understand. What are they looking for? To me, they come across more as anti-capitalism. That's basically what it comes across as.
I still have not been big chilled. I still believe in the value and effectiveness of grassroots organizing and political activism. I use all these strategies and tactics of the 1960s, but they were far more than people with painted faces running through the streets. The 60s began in 1960, not 1968. It included electoral politics. It included door-to-door organizing, grassroots canvassing, in addition to guerrilla communication tactics, in addition to civil disobedience in direct action. But we are faced with the problems of the economic squeeze. The 80s are different than the 60s. And how do we grow old? How do we mellow without eating our soul with a shovel, without gobbling up all our political principles? How much money do we need to lead a comfortable life? And how is a comfortable life to be defined? How is our society going to change for more social justice, more peace? And what role is each of us going to play in that kind of a change? Now, this is the debate that goes on within inside of us. I am not Mother Teresa, so when people stop me in the hall and say, aren't you selling out? You're getting paid to stand up here in the spotlight and yell and everything. Isn't that some sellout? I am not Mother Teresa. I don't go around the country calling on people to take vows of poverty. I call on them to make a balance between their individual needs for a comfortable life and the responsibility they have as citizens of a community and partners in a world out there. The problem is the yuppies are not a real political movement. The yuppies are a mythology created by the media in order to push overconsumption, to get people to devour more Rolex watches, more Mercedes-Benz, more condominiums than they need to have a comfortable life. So accepting the label by saying that I am a yuppie means that you are saying essentially, I am a greedy, self-centered schmuck. I mean, who out there goes around and says that I am a yuppie? It's not like saying I'm a feminist or I'm a Jew or a black or I'm a worker or I'm an environmentalist. You have a political program attached to it. So it is not a political movement with a political program. That does not mean there's not a lot of people out there jogging through the era of designer brains, trying to pile up a lot of money and lose a lot of weight. Give me the career, give me the diploma, that's all I need. I'm going to keep my nose clean, I'm going to dress right, I'm going to dress for success, and the whole empire will be ours. The same hyper-nationalism in the U.S. that we're number one and screw the rest of the world, it's only there to serve us. People like Jerry and myself took a look at that vision and said it was spiritually unrewarding for ourselves and it was unjust to those less fortunate who couldn't participate in that dream. And because of that, the greatest decade of activism in our country happened because us and others like us made that decision. And this is all a very interesting, rosy picture, but this is not reality. He does an interesting game by making all the baby boom generation not only activists, which is not true. The majority of us were not in the streets. They did not go to jail for what they believed in. They did not make the choice of coming to Canada. 20,000 came to Canada. 3.5 million went to Vietnam. So it's not the majority. It's a moral minority that makes a conscious decision to go against the grain and to go against the government. And he equates all those activists with the baby boom generation and all the baby boom generation with entrepreneurs that are cashing in. There's 75 million people in our country in the baby boom generation. 3.6 million of those earn $35,000 US or more, while at the same time 32 million earn $10,000 or less each year. In other words, for every entrepreneur riding around in a Porsche, there are 8 single mothers with kids sucking the glue off food stamps. They just happen not to make the pages of People magazine. Jerry promises that this will happen because we listened to Beatles records, because we saw that war was icky, because we're for clean air and environment, and all, because we went through the 60s. This new social consciousness will go with the higher economic earnings. These people are not active now politically because they're too busy making money. But when they make millions of dollars, they're going to be generous, they're going to give their money away, and U.S. society is going to change. Why? Because for Jerry now, money comes as the only power. That is not the vision from the 1960s. The vision was that power can also, in a democracy, come from the people. And it should, in a democracy, go through the government and go back to the people. It is not a vision of change occurring from the top down, of change being manipulated by rich professionals, often the capitals of our country, making all the decisions. For me, change still comes from the bottom up. Change is not something we delegate to people like Brian Mulroney and Ronald Reagan every 4 years when we go into a booth and pick either the evil of two lessers or the lesser of two evils. That's a very small element of democratic participation. It is that balance between the individual needs to live a comfortable life and our responsibilities to the community and the world around us. How we divide up our time, our energy, and our money, and our creative ideas, how we strike that balance. That's what politics is all about, and that's something we do every single days of our life. Change comes from the bottom up. It comes from people who are willing to go against the grain, from dissidents, from agitators who are willing to go in and stir things up, from troublemakers willing to take chances with their careers, with their reputation in the community. That's how change comes about. We've already talked about the entrepreneurs out there. I see the movement towards monopolization greater than the so-called explosion of entrepreneurialism in the United States. 200,000 entrepreneurs called farmers in our country went bankrupt last year. Baby boomers as a whole in the United States cannot afford to buy the home their parents lived in 20 years ago. In fact, I read an interesting study last week where our generation helped to support the parents. Today, parents help to support the next generation. In other words, even on the famous two-income family, the uppy income, because they can't make it on one income, they need additional support from the older generation to carry on their lifestyle. The percent of unemployment has more than doubled in both countries. I see the headlines in Canada, they're all cheering. Only 1 in 10 Canadians is out of work. In the 1960s, we would have been angry if it was 1 in 5 Canadians that was out of work. So there's twice the willingness to tolerate high unemployment. Part of, and people that care about society, that call attention to the fact that there are 2 million homeless people in the richest country on earth, and things like that, well, they're wimps. They're losers. They're not really equipping themselves for the tough, hard life ahead of hardcore deal-making in the upwardly mobile world. We have serious problems in the United States and Canada, and the only places we can get that, the money and the technology and the talent to address those, is from the war budget, and it's from the rich, because the rich, by definition, have the money. We have to restructure our tax system, flat, progressive taxes, no loopholes, get the churches out of the free real estate business, legalize marijuana, and tax it. penalize runaway corporations that run off to the third world, the countries in the third world like Canada, and want to plunder their natural resources and their workers so that they can stiff the workers back home in the U.S. I want the basics provided for everybody along with their birth certificate when they're born. I mean a decent education, decent medical care, shelter to live in. I don't want to see homeless people in the United States. I don't want to see a country controlled by the military-industrial complex. I don't want to see a country whose water and air is polluted. And I don't want to see a country that feels it has to control the rest of the world in order to build its own standard of living. And I don't think you touched on that at all. All this glorious attitude of entrepreneurialism does not exactly explain the economic relationship between the United States, Canada, and the rest of the developing world. What I don't want is to see people define success as money alone. I know if you don't have any gas in the car don't go. But you are defining success strictly along financial gains. It is not successful to go out and beat the Philadelphia Electric Company, the most powerful utility company in the state of Pennsylvania, and prevent them from destroying the Delaware River. I did that. Other people that I passed on the skills of activism did that. That's not a success for you. It's not a success if somebody goes out and paints a painting that gives them intrinsic value, because those are not successes in life. Success only has to do with earning the American Express credit card. And I am against that. What you said about Jesse Jackson is a joke. Jesse Jackson is not out there pushing self-reliance. Jesse Jackson said, and I quote, "The American economic system is built on corporate greed," unquote. Jesse Jackson was organizing protests and picket lines around Burger King, and they were successful, and that's how change came about in Burger King. You seem to think that apartheid's going to come down in South Africa because the banks, out of good consciousness, all of a sudden say that it's not exactly right. It's coming because unions, churches, communities, schools are pulling their money out of the corporations with holdings in South Africa. That's how change is coming about. On the Delaware River battle, we had 800 people that lied down in front of the bulldozers. We occupied the courthouse. We had a voter referendum drive. We got 70,000 votes. We also kicked a congressman out of office. Electoral politics are not out of my bailiwick. That's how change comes about. There is no problem in our society to which there is not a creative, workable, practical solution. We have the technology, we have the money, we have the brains, we simply lack the will to address ourselves to the public problem. We didn't invent the cry of peace and justice in the 1960s, and we certainly didn't write its final chapter. Those people that still have their shoulders to the wheel, that are still political activists, I salute you, I'm with you, the battle is not over. Thanks for bringing me here, Becky.